On Bruny Island off the south coast of Tasmania, a little cheese-making concern is changing the way Australians think about cheese. Nick Haddow's journey to cheese-making excellence began over 10 years ago with a passion.
I've always been involved in working with food and wine, and at one point in my life I was working as a chef, and it was then that I really became fascinated in the process of making cheese. Started experimenting, started messing around with it, and just got the bug, just absolutely got the bug.
Today, the Bruny Island Cheese Company is one of the major attractions and employers on the scenic island, producing 27,000 kilos of cheese a year. However, his start in the business was pretty minimalist, with equipment costing around $19.
It almost seems like two different businesses. You know, when we started out 10 years ago, almost, to the month, it was my partner Leonie and I, with a bunch of equipment that we'd bought at the hardware store for less than $20. We transported the milk in a couple of buckets in the back of the combi, and we made cheese using, stuff we'd just thrown together. And from there to here it's almost impossible to reconcile the two businesses.
One of Nick's objectives at the outset was to make cheese the same way it's been produced for centuries. He also wanted to produce Australia's only unpasteurised cheese. It took several years to convince regulatory authorities that it was safe in Australia. It's things like this that drive him.
I'd say it's borderline obsession more than passion. I'm incredibly driven by making cheese that pushes the boundaries in Australia. Our unpasteurised milk cheese, being the only one in Australia, is a great example of that. I'm totally driven by flavour, but the motivation, I think, comes from seeing people eating our cheese and just loving their reaction. Love making people happy through our cheeses.
His company uses local produce taken from animals that are farmed in an environmentally sustainable way. It takes 250,000 litres of milk from 2 regional dairy properties that otherwise would not be viable.
I guess we're a little bit different than we put an enormous emphasis on quality. Everything that we do is dictated by quality, but not just in the cheese making, but also particularly in the cheese maturation. So we use a lot of very old traditional cheese maturing techniques. We don't vacuum pack our cheese. Everything's got a natural rind. And the payoff for that is great flavour, but and integrity and character in the cheese. But the cost is it takes a lot of work as well. It's a lot of time spent turning and rubbing and in the maturing room. But it's worth it. We don't know how to make cheese another way, so.
The growth of the Bruny Island Cheese Company has been largely due to a novel approach to marketing. The cheeses aren't sold to the big retailers, but instead sold from the cellar door and through growing online sales that may see the company turning over $2 million this year.
We started this thing called the Cheese Club, a way for us to be able to send cheese directly, us being the people who make it, to the people who eat it, with no one in between. And that's been huge for us. It's been massive. It's now well over half of our business. Revenue comes directly from the Cheese Club, and we've got, at the moment, and it's growing very rapidly, 9,000 Cheese Club members spread all around Australia who regularly get a box of our cheese.
Nick Haddow sees more growth in the future, but not at the expense of quality. It's a case of being true to the original objectives in making fine artisan cheeses. The business has received great recognition in the past few years, and being a finalist at the Telstra Australian Business Awards is like the icing on the cake.
Winning a Telstra Business Award was a huge high for us, and really capped off what's been a lot of work in improving the business and working on the business in the last couple of years. So it doesn't get better than that.